Welcome to It's a Woman's World, where we'll meet achieving women making a difference in our community. I'm Carolyn Bruna. Our guest is Amy Riolo, award-winning best-selling author, chef, TV personality, and Mediterranean diet advocate. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Carolyn. It's great to be here.
I'm excited that you're here because I've been looking at you online and I've pulled up some of your TV shows and excerpts from shows and some of your books and things, so it's fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the Mediterranean diet advocate and good food, not just for people with diabetes, but for all of us, for healthy and happy living.
Definitely.
And your book, which is here, Quick Diabetic Recipes for Dummies.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's a lot to cover, but yeah. I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Well, we'll see what we can get done.
Awesome.
Okay. So first tell me, how did you get into cooking for Mediterranean food?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Well, I think I had no other choice. The Mediterranean food chose me. I didn't choose it. I was born in a Southern Italian American family, and cooking was everything in terms of growing up, the lifestyle, and the way that we lived. Cooking was our entertainment. Cooking was our chore. Cooking was our fun. It was just it was part of everyday life for me. So I was always cooking with my family, with my mother, with my grandparents in different capacities, things like that. And so we had gardens and we grew a lot of things that we were able to enjoy ourselves. And so it was just a way of living. I really, in terms of the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean lifestyle, that hit me later on in life because I realized that when I went to Italy and met the relatives, a lot of the people in southern Italy were, they looked just like us. They had the same traits. Everyone here had a twin over there, except we're speaking different languages. But there, they were much more healthy than everybody here. And so at a very young age, I said, I wonder what that is. They look alike, but they don't have diabetes. They don't have hypertension or heart disease. What is it? And so the food is a big part of it, but also the lifestyle. And I wanted to really get to the bottom of how come their genes didn't work against them or seem to be working better than ours here. And so that kind of put that thought in my head, and then I wanted to make a career out of it. And
then you became the chef for your family, and then
yes.
you went into the diabetes problem because...
Exactly. That's great that you remember that. Yes. Yeah. So when I was young, when my mom went to work, she said, okay, I'm going to work, your chore is going to be cooking for everybody. So she would leave some food in the refrigerator, some things on the counter, and it was kind of like chopped, but it was, much before Food Network and the TV. So she'd just leave me these things. She said, you make dinner. And I knew how to make special things that my grandmother taught me, or like certain dishes, but I didn't have the wherewithal to figure out how much carbohydrate somebody needed or how much protein and put it all together. I would do the best that I could. And by that I meant I'd usually call my grandmother and be like, look, she left this, what do I do? And then so it was my grandmother who got me into cookbooks because she would, once my parents would get the phone bills and they'd see these huge numbers, they'd be like, okay, you can't really call her every night and let her walk you through dinner. You have to do something else. So I would go through the index of the cookbooks and say, like what works, what should I do? And I would start reading a lot of the diabetes cookbooks that the American Diabetes Association had or other people had, just so that I could help my mom. And I was at a very young age like a lot of modern people in the sense that I didn't want to cook 2 meals. I wanted everybody to eat the same meal. I wanted to cook once. I wanted to cook quickly, and I wanted us to all enjoy it. So those things that I learned at a very young age, I just kind of put to use, and now other people can put them to use because people are in the same boat. It's 20 years later, but people are still not wanting to cook 2 meals, not having a lot of time, wanting to make sure that it's tasty and that everybody likes it, and that the person who's got whatever diagnosis doesn't have to eat a special diet food kind of thing. Yeah. So I just said, what are the best things that she can eat, that she'll enjoy, that we'll also enjoy? Right. And I made lists of those food. And then I would say, okay, out of those dishes, out of those ingredients, what are the healthiest for her? What are the healthiest for us? How can I make them taste better within these parameters? And now it's second nature, but at that time it was huge. I mean, it was almost like we went through a few days or weeks of what I call mourning before we even got to that point, because I thought, oh, we're not going to ever be able to eat this again, or we're never going to be able to do that. So it took a while, but eventually there are some tips, and that's what I hope to share with everybody today.
Well, give me a couple, because what are the main differences between just healthy food and healthy eating and healthy diet, of course, and the ones that you would need for diabetes?
That's a great point. I mean, I recommend that the healthful eating for everybody, and kind of even diabetes friendly for everybody, because it's not going to hurt you. but it will kind of keep you on the right path so you don't develop pre-diabetes. For the people with diabetes, you know, a lot of the misconceptions are, I only have to worry about sugar, actual sugar, or maybe some people know about carbs, but they don't think like you also have to make sure you get enough fiber in your diet. You also have to make sure that there's a balance of carbohydrate and protein with each meal. And you know, bottom line, you want to make sure that the majority of what you're eating is plant-based. So whether you have diabetes or not, if you're eating a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, a lot of good plant-based foods, that's a great thing. So I would always start the meals from there. I would look and say, okay, what fruit, what vegetables in season, which for me was a little bit easier. I had a little bit of an advantage of others because, you know, as you know, growing up in an Italian family, there's a lot of produce around, and that's what people think of. So seasonality wasn't an issue, and I could automatically go there, and then add the protein onto it. And then think about the protein in terms of a lean protein. Okay, so, you know, is it going to be a fish or a chicken breast or something like that? Maybe a bean or a legume. But then you've got to have flavor. So if you're taking a lot of fat out of a recipe, which is important for people with diabetes, where are you going to get the flavor from? You know, so good quality extra virgin olive oil, lots of fresh herbs, lots of spices are really what we turn to, because you've got to get flavor from somewhere. So I don't want people to ever taste a recipe and think that it's a watered down version. I want it to be the maximum of whatever it can be. So so herbs give you a lot of bang for your buck in terms of nutrition, but also in terms of flavor, and so do spices. So in a lot of these books, I have a lot of spice enhancers, a lot of different mixes that people can add in to make sure that they get that. And my other tip for people is, don't water down a recipe. You know, if you've got that one favorite holiday go-to eggplant parmesan recipe that's got a lot of mozzarella and a lot of maybe pecorino on top or something, don't take that recipe and try to make it healthy and eat it every day. Eat that on Sunday, you know, eat that on the holiday, but on the rest of the days, make sure you're eating things that have flavor, but that also are just tend to be really good for you naturally.
Actually, I remember you telling me about that. The people in Italy had the same genes, but the food that they were eating wasn't the mozzarella and the lasagna every day or every week. It was only on holidays. That's interesting.
Sure.
You mentioned fiber, and make sure that's in our diets. Fruits and vegetables, of course, and lower carbohydrates, and then the protein, meat. But the balance, do you have in your books tips for how you balance that?
Sure. There are actual chapters based on meal planning, which will tell people, you know, to make sure that you get, say, a lot of times they use the plate method. So if you're looking at a plate, you would want half of your plate to be from vegetables, like good quality, kind of leafy green vegetables type of thing. You'd want a quarter of the plate to be from a lean protein, say chicken or fish, something that along those lines. And you'd want the other quarter of your plate to be from a nice complex carbohydrate. So like a whole grain would be good, you know, sweet potato, something like that, something that takes the body a little bit of time to digest. But for most people with diabetes, you don't want to completely cut out all carbohydrates, because not all carbohydrates are created equal. You want something that your body can still get energy from, but you want to make sure that it's balanced with the protein and the fat, so that it will help throughout the day, help to keep the blood sugar levels even. That's a big goal for people with diabetes, is to make sure that the blood sugar levels get kept even throughout the day.
Okay, great. So I know this one you're doing because you're spokesperson for the American Diabetes Association?
Sure. So I'm the spokesperson for this particular book. I edited it, and then they needed someone to represent it in the media, and they asked me to do it, and I'm happy to do it because it's a great resource. You know, and I tell people, whether you have diabetes or not, meal planning tips can always help. What to eat out, you know, swap outs for things that are too fattening, for example, and just to have some great, easy recipes up your sleeve. This book has everything in it, from, you know, Asian stir fries to Italian pastas to blueberry muffins and pancakes and things like that for breakfast. So it's a good one little resource for everybody.
Well, some of your other books, though, also have the name of diabetes in them.
I actually brought them. Yeah, they're right here, so I'll show you.
Why don't you say the names of them?
This one is the Mediterranean Diabetes Cookbook, so you can have a look at that. That was my third book. That won the Nautilus Award, and it was actually voted the best diabetes cookbook ever. So I'm very proud of it. This one has all of the recipes from all around the Mediterranean, so everywhere from south of France to Israel, Morocco to Egypt. It tells a lot of history, a lot of allure, a lot of my living in the Mediterranean, but just very easy recipes people can do. This book was based on the recipes that I did for my mom as a kid, and then kind of expanded. So
are these online, and can people get samples of them?
Sure, sure. Everything's on Amazon, and I have a lot of cooking videos and things.
To get free samples. of the different recipes is what I'm asking.
Sure. Yeah. They can Google the book. They can go on my YouTube channel, and they're all, I have a lot of cooking videos on YouTube, so they could Google the different ones, and they will come up. Also, I have a blog through my website that they could go there, and they have, there's tons of recipes as well.
Well, mention your website since you, for people if
Sure.
they'd like to pull that up, because I know I've pulled up some of your recipes already.
Okay, it's amyriolo.com, so it's just my name, amyriolo.com, and on the home page there's access to the blog, which will take you there, and you can type in almost any country name and almost any recipe name if it lives within the Mediterranean space, whether it's any of those countries I mentioned, because that's what I've been focusing on for many years. So my blog used to be called Dining with Diplomats when I started it, and I would make a point of every week going to a different embassy or working with a different ambassador, with a different diplomat in a different country, talking about their food and then highlighting it. And then as it grew, I took that same philosophy of history and nutrition and culture, but I put it with my career as I was already doing it. So it kind of expanded. But there's a lot of free resources there. Today I posted, I think, 10 different recipes for it's National Blueberry Muffin Day. So give people a whole slew of breakfast recipes that they could go towards. But
Today's National Blueberry Muffin Day?
Yes.
You didn't bring any samples, Amy. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Aw.
Next time.
Next time, right. So now, my big question, though, is, when people hear the word diabetes, it has such a stigma. And how do we overcome that, or do we overcome that?
I think we should. I think with these new statistics that we have, when I started, the number was 1 in 11 American adults had diabetes, which is horrendous. And I hate saying it, because if you say 1 in 11, and that sounds normal to people, like, oh yeah, we won't do anything, to work on that. But now, in a little bit over a decade, that number has grown to 1 in 2. 1 in 2 American adults has diabetes. So that's huge. And there's no room, in my opinion, for a stigma if it's half of us are going through this. We would really have to get rid of that mentality, because if we get rid of the mentality, then we can offer solutions so that I think the problem will be solved. And I'm talking about restaurants, I'm talking about food that we order online, things that we get out, things that we buy in supermarkets, the way our children are fed in school lunch programs. All of this needs to address the fact that diabetes and prediabetes are a huge reality for the majority, or at least half, of American adults. The stigma, when I was working with the U.S. Endocrine Society, what I found, we actually did panels with doctors where we talked about the stigma. We would have someone with diabetes come up on stage. We had a doctor, we had myself, we had other experts, and we would talk about things like this. And because diabetes is considered by a lot of people to be a lifestyle, dis-ease, that people who have it are viewed sometimes as lazy, or as who aren't fit, or who don't care, and that's just not the case. You could take 2 people and they might be eating exactly the same diet, and for whatever reason, this person might develop diabetes and this person might not. Sometimes you might encounter people who eat a lot of candy bars in a day, and they have great numbers, but someone else who's eating pretty healthfully might not. So we know stress are factors. We know other conditions in life are factors. We know environment can be a factor. They're finding now that people tend to, depending upon who they work with, they might have similar health situations as not even their family anymore, but who they spend a lot of time with or who they work with. So there are a lot of things to look at, a lot of factors, but if we can claim back the pleasure of eating, if we can claim back the taking control of the own nutrition that we put in our body, and not only nutrition, but the way that food is viewed. So one of the things I love about the Mediterranean is that there, food is always viewed as a medicine. It's always viewed as an ally. It's not viewed as the enemy. Like, in your own life, just think about like your friends and your people that you know. How many times do you talk about food and they say, oh, I'm on a diet, I can't even talk about food. That's the first time you want to talk about food, is when you're on, especially if you're on a diet, especially if you want to get healthy. Food should be part of that conversation. So like if you're in the Mediterranean, you say to somebody, I've got a sore throat, they'll come over with anise tea, they'll come over with fried onions, they'll come over with something that's going to help your sore throat. Here, they're going to talk about medicine, and they're going to tell you about what to avoid, what foods to avoid. So it's just a different little approach.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and that was going to be another question that I hear a lot. They're saying now that food is medicine. We'll talk about that maybe just a little bit more in the second half.
Sure, sure.
We'll break for a short public service announcement.
Life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. but you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to It's a Woman's World. We're speaking with Amy Riolo, and especially about her book, The Quick Diabetic Recipes for Dummies. Amy, we were talking the first half about, we ended up with food as medicine. So
Correct.
I want to go into that a little more because I've been hearing that term a lot.
Yes.
So explain more.
The term culinary
Please.
medicine has become very, very popular. But, you know, it's been around since the time of Hippocrates, so it's actually an ancient science. But it's the combination of the art of science, the science of nutrition and the art of culinary medicine. When you put those two things together, then you get, you know, culinary medicine. So it's a popular topic, looking at the art form of food, the science of nutrition, and just kind of fusing them. And it's something that I work more and more on now. It's something that people are becoming very interested in. And it's really interesting to me, Carolyn, because, you know, when I started 10 years ago, if I would offer a cooking class and I would call it healthy, nobody would come. Even if I called it like healthy Italian food, healthy Greek food, nobody would come because it had the word healthy in it. Nobody wanted it. Now I can have a course called Culinary Medicine for Beginners and sell it out without having to try very hard. And so I've done repeat series of this course where we teach people about things like anti-inflammatory foods, superfoods, diabetes-friendly foods, antioxidants, what they need in terms of beauty foods, brain foods, all these kind of things. And each course is based on that subject, but then we make a nice, really delicious meal that goes along and has a lot of nutrients that you need to go along and to either prevent what you're trying to prevent or to, you know, help this specific type of illness. So it's wonderful for that.
Wow. Yes, I know people really are much more interested in you say healthful foods rather than healthy. There's
well, we have a friend of ours who
words.
might be watching now, actually my cookbook mentor who taught me how to write cookbooks, Sheila Kaufman, will write to me or call me if I get off the air and say healthy. She always says you have to say healthful. In the in the news and in the media a lot we use the word healthy, and I think nobody would ever fault us for doing that. Right. But the word police will get to you.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I have to laugh because I've had Sheila on my show and she's also explained the healthful, but I didn't catch the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, good. But what I wanted to know then is or what I was going to say was that in addition to the different healthful foods that we're talking about, people are more interested in gluten-free, dairy-free, so they do want these types of foods more and more today.
Definitely,
right?
and that's affected my career.
It's wonderful.
So this book, the Italian Diabetes Cookbook, is the last one that I wrote with the ADA. It's done very well, but each recipe that I had in it that has gluten had to have a gluten-free counterpart. So that was part of the thing. If I did a pasta, it had to have a gluten-free version. And so basically I wrote almost double the recipes than I thought going in because I couldn't have any gluten in the book. So it's part of the new contracts that we're doing. It's part of the new way that things are going. My Ultimate Mediterranean Diet book had to have a lot of gluten-free options for people. So even if the book isn't labeled gluten-free, it's still going there. And luckily, you know, some recipes are naturally gluten-free. Some, if it's naturally made with almond flour, you don't have to worry, or things like that. But some aren't, and people don't know the difference. So they still want to label it gluten-free, even though I can look at it and say, well, of course, it's beans and rice. You know, it is gluten-free, but you have to have that special stamp on it. So the numbers of people who have celiac disease still are nowhere near the level of people that have diabetes. But because it exists and because there's not the stigma attached to that, so people want to use the gluten-free thing for marketing. If you think about a cookbook, you know, 1 in 100 people are diagnosed with celiac disease. Still, many people are intolerant, but it's the actual diagnosis of celiac is like 1 in 100. You're looking at 1 in 2 for adults with diabetes or pre-diabetes. It's a much bigger number, but you don't see the word diabetes friendly anywhere, and that's dealing with that stigma that we talked about, you know, in the first section. So it's great to be educated, but it's also great for people to be able to know what they can eat.
Gosh, interesting. Yeah. I wanted to ask about have you to contrast for us the difference between the American diet and the Mediterranean, because you're obviously the Mediterranean diet advocate.
Sure.
So tell us what the difference is.
Well, there are many differences, but you know, the main one is if you can look at it in terms of actual what's on your plate or what's in lifestyle. So we'll start with plate, and if we have time, I can talk about the lifestyle too. Most American meals are, you know, based upon a protein and a carbohydrate or a starch and a vegetable, not necessarily knowing which one will be. And when people plan meals in the United States, they usually plan based upon the protein. So tonight we're having chicken, tonight we're having fish, tonight we're having steak, tonight we're having, and then they kind of add these little quote-unquote side dishes to go with it. with the Mediterranean diet, those side dishes are the protagonist, and the protein is the, plays a supporting role. An actual serving of protein, believe it or not, is 3.5 ounces. So that's like not the size of my whole hand, but just the size of my palm, which is, for a lot of Americans, that's very hard to eat. If you take it to a restaurant, most restaurants would close if they served that amount of protein for a serving, even though that is an actual serving. In the Mediterranean, however, because meat was eaten much less frequently, that is something that they would naturally just usually have a smaller amount of meat. Maybe it's in a stew, maybe it's part of a sauce, maybe it's something, but the vegetables would be the main thing. So in a Mediterranean meal, you might have, depending upon if you're in the European part of the Mediterranean, you would have kind of a first course, second course, third. If you did the first course, that would be plant-based food, probably very little seafood or meat. The second course would have a protein, but it would have a side dish of a lot of vegetables right around it. Then you would have your salad, usually either before or after that, so a lot more vegetables and greens that way. If you're dealing with a North African country or an Eastern Mediterranean part of the Mediterranean, then you would be dealing with probably a stew dish that has a lot of greens built into it already, with another plant-based food on the side, with a lot of plant-based salads to start the meal, or vegetable dishes, that kind of thing. So it's very easy with the Mediterranean meal plan, no matter what culture you're looking at, to get a lot of the vegetables into the diet. It's not to say that you can't add them into the American diet, but it's just a mindset in terms of meal planning for people to know, like, just to make that switch of, okay, what's local, what's in season, what can I add into? And then if you want to have, any type of American dish, it's okay, but as long as to get the vegetables in there, that's the real challenge.
I see. So I was going to say, what's the difference? How do we make the American diet healthier? And,
Sure.
and right now, I see it's basically
Exactly.
cut down on the protein and add more vegetables.
Right, because vegetables
yes.
are full of fiber, they're full of antioxidants, they're full of nutrients. So by adding those into our meal, we make sure that we get all of those nutrients, and we'll get more full. Like, a lot of times you tell people to take things out, so if you just cut down the protein, and people are left with the same supporting side dish and the same carbohydrate, it's not enough.
Right.
But if you tell them, cut down the protein, but add more of this, add a salad to every meal, for example, that's dressed with a good extra virgin olive oil, high phenolic olive oil, with lemon juice or a good quality vinegar. That's great. You could add that into every meal. It will help to fill you up. It will help to give you more nutrients, that kind of thing. Or if you don't want to do the salad, but maybe you want to do green beans that way, or broccoli that way, or asparagus that way, is wonderful. Also, to know that our body needs the nutrients of what's local and what's in season at that time. So
Didn't know that.
we live in Maryland. Say, in Maryland, it's tomato season. Right now we've got tomatoes and corn and peaches and watermelon.
Peaches,
So our
yes.
body will benefit more from eating those things than if we were going to eat those in November. It would actually, we need those nutrients, and we take more from them. And also, because they're local and they're in season, they're cheaper. So it's a great way to save money as well. So that's a good it's a very easy, thing for people to remember when you're at the supermarket or when you're at the farmer's market. These are good things to add into the diet at that time.
Oh, I love that. Those are wonderful tips. And
Thank you.
I always do try to do what's in season, but I never realized that was more healthy for my body
Sure,
than
definitely,
at that time.
definitely.
It's just that, it's fresher and it's locally grown, and so I like that idea.
Right,
It's really
right,
neat.
yeah.
Very good. I wanted to turn to something kind of fun.
Okay.
Snacks.
Okay.
But for some healthy snacks for people with diabetes, and then I guess for the rest of us as well, because
Sure.
like you're saying, it's really just good, healthy food. But I don't want snacks to be carrots. I want some good
definitely.
snacks.
So in the Quick Diabetic Recipes book, there's actually a whole chapter on snacks, because that's an area I find people are really looking, and we overlook it, we forget about it. If we're lucky enough to think about the main meal and breakfast, who's going to ever arrive at the snacks? But snacks are great because, especially people with diabetes, you want to keep your blood sugar levels even, so it's good to have something in you probably like every 4 hours. But even if you don't have diabetes, if you're on the run or if you're going to work, it will help you to, not sabotage your meal plan by getting too hungry by the time you finally arrive home at night. So I love yogurt. Greek yogurt, for example, has 20 grams of protein per serving. So it's a great amount of protein. You also get a lot of probiotics in the yogurt, and a lot of what is called inulin. Inulin, it's spelled like insulin without the S. So the inulin helps keep your blood sugar levels even. So it's just a great snack. Just a cup of Greek yogurt, a handful of nuts, raw nuts, either almonds or walnuts, maybe some flax seeds, whatever you like, some fresh berries or whatever fruit you would like to add to that is a wonderful little great snack to go. Also smoothies. A lot of people love to do smoothies. So you can use either like a good quality almond almond milk or soy milk or a yogurt as well. Throw in, I like to throw in an overripe banana because it gives you a lot of sweetness. And then you can have some flax seeds, some sesame seeds or chia seeds into that, maybe some berries, and of course a million different varieties of the smoothie. But I have these all on my YouTube channel as well. But they're great, great go-to recipes for people. Nuts and dried fruit, nature's original fast food on the go kind of snack. So people make themselves little bags ready to go, just like a handful of nuts with some of these dried fruits. You can even do dried olives, which are really fun nowadays. Some people are buying those, but they found that if you eat a handful of nuts and a handful of olives before a meal, that you will digest you'll digest more slowly, you'll absorb more of the nutrients, and you'll eat less. So, in Spanish cuisine, for example, they always have the tapa where they have the almonds and the olives. So it's a great little thing, great snack for people to eat on the go. Of course, and then I really have to promote the legumes. So like chickpeas, lentils, things like that Americans tend to not think about so much are wonderful snacks. So you can either do a chickpea salad really quick and have it ready to go for yourself, or hummus, especially if you do a homemade hummus. I have the recipe on my YouTube channel. It's super easy. It's much more healthful than if you buy it prepared, and you can make it and have it. It's really cheap. You can have it in the refrigerator for a long time and just bring it with you. So that's a great snack. Also, lentils. Red lentils cook in 5 minutes. So people have a cup of red lentils that they will put an onion, a little bit of water in, some spices, maybe some coriander and cumin. Boil that literally for 5 minutes and mash it with a fork. It has the consistency of a refried bean. So that becomes a really nice dip, for crudité and things like that. I like to have the crudité. You mentioned carrots, but also celery, broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, whatever you like, ready to go in little bags. And you could take a little bit of the hummus or a little bit of the yogurt, a little bit of the lentil puree with the vegetables. Those are other great snacks on the go.
Yeah. Can we add a little bit of chocolate to our dried fruit?
Oh, sure. Especially the dark chocolate's really great because it's full of a lot of antioxidants. So the higher you go up in number, it means the more pure cocoa it has and the less fat. So if you get a really nice dark quality chocolate, you'll be good.
Yeah. So tell us just kind of how, again, you've mentioned before, but how can people get in touch with you, and how can they see some of your videos, and how can they find out some free recipes?
Sure. So I'm all over social media. So my name is Amy Riolo. My website is amyriolo.com. It's AMYRIOLO.com. They can get to my blog from there. You can get to my YouTube channel, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it.
Okay. And what are some foods that people should always keep in the house that are healthy and healthful?
I like people to have a lot of food in the house all the time because it sets you up for success. The more you've got, the more you can come home from a busy day or before you're going to a busy day and make yourself something great and at least be ensured that you have one good meal. So in the pantry, for example, I would recommend that people have really good quality, low acidic, high phenolic olive oil to use as a condiment for things. Really good quality apple cider vinegar, organic apple cider vinegar, or a wine vinegar. Also a nice fruit basket with lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. Quinoa is a great grain to have on hand. Barley, if people like barley, some pasta, some rice, things like that, so that they can throw things together. Also the beans, lentils, chickpeas, white beans, black beans, whatever you like of the bean and legume family. Have some of those on hand. In the fridge, I would definitely have some good quality dairy and seafood if you like it. So a good quality organic milk or soy milk, almond milk, yogurts, good quality Greek yogurt, all of your produce, so the vegetables, you want to make sure to have vegetables on hand.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for all these fabulous tips.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've learned things, so thank you.
Wonderful. That's the goal.
Yes. I hope you've enjoyed meeting our guest, Amy Riolo, as much as I have, and you've learned some good tips about eating healthy foods. If you know a woman who's gone above and beyond to contribute to our community, please email us. We're itsawomansworld@mmctv.org. Remember, it's a woman's world. I'm Carolyn Bruna. See you next time.